Welcome. It's nice to have you here. And today I would like to share with you how you can solve all of your problems without doing any of the things that you think you have to do to solve your problems. So I'm going to say that one more time. I'm going to share with you how you can solve all of your problems without doing any of the things that you think you have to do in order to solve your problems. Does that sound like a good deal? I hope so. So, um, first of all, you might be wondering, could that really be true that you could solve all of your problems? Is there a catch here? Am I talking about just some types of problems? No, I'm talking about all types of problems. So let me just kind of clarify what kinds of problems that I'm going to share with you that you can solve so that you can make sure that you're in the right place. Because I don't want to waste your time if if what I'm going to share is not going to apply to you and your problems, then you might as well go somewhere else. So I want to make sure that you know whether what I'm going to share with you will actually help you with your problems. So this will help you with financial problems. It will help you with health problems. It will help you with relationship problems. It will help you with anxiety problems. It will help you with existential problems. It will help you with spiritual problems. Any kind of problem that you might have, if it's not covered by that list, let me know so that I can make sure that I can clarify for you that your type of problem could be covered by what I'm going to talk to you about today. Because again, it's really important that you can understand right from the get-go that this really truly is going to help you with every type of problem. It's not just some types of problems. It's not just the inner problems. It's not just the emotional problems. It's not just this type of problem or that type of problem. It's all types of problems. Okay, so that's really important to understand. And for those who are just joining, just so you can be caught up on what the topic of today's talk is about. It's about how to solve all of your problems without doing any of the things that you think you need to do to solve those problems. So I've already established what types of problems. It's all types of problems, any type of problem of any kind. Now, the next part of this is that I said that I'm going to help you solve all types of problems that you might have without doing any of the things that you think you have to do to solve those problems. So now we need to talk about what we've already established, what types of problems this will work for. It's for all types of problems. Now we need to talk about what are the things that you think you have to do to solve your problems that you don't have to do. Because I'm telling you, you can solve all of your problems without doing any of the things that you think you have to do. And so let's just briefly consider what those things might be. So in general, we could say that if a person thinks that they have a financial problem, then they think that they have to make a bunch of money in order to solve that problem. Would that seem fair, right? They think they have a financial problem, so they think that they have to solve that problem by earning a bunch of money. If they and they've got all kinds of ideas about what's required for that, how they have to earn that money, usually selling their time, sacrificing their values and their life, basically, right? So they've got ideas about what they need to do in order to solve that problem. If it's a health problem, then they've got ideas about what they need to do because they've already got some idea of what the problem is. They've got some kind of name or label or categorization for it. And so then they've already got a story about what they have to do to solve that. Maybe they have to go to some expert. Maybe they have to find the right diet. Maybe they have to find the right exercise routine. Maybe they have to do the perfect breathing method. Maybe they've got to do the right body work process or yoga or whatever it might be, but they've got some ideas about what they have to do in order to solve that health problem. And even if those ideas are not well defined, right? I mean, they might throw their hands up and say, I'm just overwhelmed. I have no idea what I should do, but they still have some idea that they have to do something. It might not be well defined. They might not be giving clear enough attention to it, but in the back of their mind, they've got some ideas that they have to do something. That's hence the overwhelm, right? The overwhelm is because they have a sense that there's something required. They have to figure something out. They've got to get the right steps before they can solve that problem. So we could go on and on with all the various types of problems, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. You have a problem or a whole set of problems, and then you think that you have to do things in order to solve those problems. So just pause for a moment and notice how you have problems in your life. Hopefully you can recognize that. If not, then that's a really important first step, is to have self-honesty, to acknowledge that you perceive that you've got some problems. Because if you can't do that much, you can't actually solve the problems, because you're just living in denial. So you have to admit that you perceive that you have problems. Okay. Now you want to recognize that you have some ideas about what you have to do in order to solve those problems. Whether those ideas are well-defined or vague, nonetheless, you have some ideas about what is required in order for you to solve those problems. So just take an inventory and notice, so that we can all be on the same page here together. Okay, so you have problems and you've got ideas about what you need to do to solve those problems. Okay, so now I'm going to, as I've already suggested to you, I'm going to tell you how you can solve all those problems without doing any of the things that you think you have to do to solve those problems. And that might seem crazy, but let's just take a look and see how well. So you've got the idea that you've got to do all these things to solve your problems. And the question is, how well has that worked out? And you can go ahead and answer that it hasn't worked out well at all, because that's the truth, right? I mean, if it had worked out well, then you wouldn't be here. You would already be living your perfect life. But the fact that you perceive that you have problems means that the ways that you've been trying to solve those problems have not worked. So that's another important step in the process, is just to finally see and tell the truth, which is that you've been playing the same game, trying to solve the problems, and it hasn't worked. And you keep telling yourself, oh, the next theory that I come up with, the next idea, the next expert, the next diet, the next this, the next that, that's going to solve my problems. The next financial scheme, the next investment scheme, whatever, that's going to solve my problem. And if you say it's whatever it is, relationship problems, spiritual problems, any kind of problem, this is the game we've been playing. The next thing, the next book, the next workshop, the next day, the next thing, that's going to, when I finally get that thing and then I do it, that's going to solve my problem. Now, what I'm going to share with you, for some of you who are here live, this won't be shocking, but maybe it still will be shocking. Definitely for many people, this will be completely shocking. Okay, you cannot solve the problems in that way because you actually don't know what the problem is at all. Because if you actually knew what the problem was, then you would already know what the solution is. And then you would be getting good results instead of continuing to have the problem. Okay, so in a sense, the problem here is that you don't even know what the problem is. And you might say, well, that's crazy. I already defined what the problem is. I know it's the financial problem, it's the relationship problem, it's the health problem. I've got a name for it. I've gone to the expert. They've given me a label, a diagnosis. I fit into a box. There's a category. There's a name for this. There are other people who congregate around these same types of problems. So I know what the problem is. But bear with me, because I promise you, I'm going to do my best to prove to you, or help you to prove to yourself, that that's true, that you don't know what the actual problem is. Because if you knew what the problem was, you would already be solving the problem. So let's just take a step back. Okay, so we've already established that this works for, what I'm going to share with you works for all problems, and that it will help you solve those problems without doing any of the things that you think you have to do to solve those problems. And we've already looked and seen what are the things that you think you have to do to solve those problems. And maybe you don't have a complete inventory of that, but at least you have hopefully some idea generally of what I'm talking about. So now let's actually, and I've made this somewhat perhaps shocking claim, that the real problem is you don't even know what the problem is. So now let's look and see, how could that be true? So let's sort of take a step back and look at this in a slightly, maybe seems slightly strange way, but then we'll bring it back and connect it so that it will all make sense to you. So just play along with me, and I want you to think about this. Now, if you think about an organization of any kind. So it could be a school, it could be a religious organization, it could be a community, it could be a family, it could be a government, it could be a business, okay, any type of organization whatsoever. And I want you to think about if that organization has a shared clarity of purpose, vision, and values, then what can you say? What are the qualities of that organization? What would you expect to see happening in that organization? So just think about that for a moment. Maybe you've had experience of that. Maybe personally you've experienced it. Maybe you've witnessed it. Maybe you've at least imagined the possibility. Can you think about what would that organization demonstrate? What would it be? What kinds of qualities would it be demonstrating? So I can tell you some of the things that come to mind for me. It would be harmonious, prosperous. There would be it would generally be healthy, right? There would be a sense of inner alignment. There would be a sense of purpose. Okay, so that's an organization that has a shared sense of clarity of purpose, values, and vision. And if you think about now, that doesn't mean that conflicts don't come up within the organization, because of course they do, because that's the nature of things in this life, right? There are going to be conflicts because different people have different ideas about things at different times. They see things differently. And so that's okay. But the shared purpose, vision, and values allow the individuals within that organization to let go of whatever is not high priority. Does that make sense? Can you think about how that would be true, right? So if you think about some organization and you've got these two people, let's call them Jane and Bob. And let's say that Bob's having some challenge in his life presently, because again, that happens. People have challenges. And so maybe in his communication with Jane, he's a little bit short. Now, because they have a shared purpose, values, and vision, Jane doesn't need to make a big deal out of that. Jane can easily let that go. She holds Bob in compassion, respect, and love. She knows that they share these things in common. They're working toward a common vision. So and she just like, Bob's having some challenges. It's okay. I don't need to take it personally. So conflict happens, but it's easily resolved. It doesn't need to blow up into a big thing because there's harmony, there's coherence, there's alignment. And that's because they can prioritize. They know what's important. Okay, now let's think about an organization that does not have a shared common clarity of purpose, values, and vision. Perhaps you know of such an organization. So what happens within that organization? What qualities does that organization express? And you know as well as I do, there's a biblical quote that something along the lines it's like that a kingdom, something like a kingdom with a kingdom that is divided will result in desolation. A house divided cannot stand, right? And Abraham Lincoln famously paraphrased and said something very similar, right? That a house divided against itself cannot stand. So that's exactly what we end up with in an organization that doesn't have a shared clarity of common purpose, vision, and values. And so there's desolation, right? I mean, it becomes incoherent, experiences dis-ease, a lack of harmony. There's increasing conflict that's not easily resolved, a lot of argumentativeness, resentments, negativity, a lot of self-harm happening internally within that organization. And eventually it has to fall apart. I mean, it cannot remain because it doesn't have coherence. Doesn't have that inner alignment. So now what does any of this have to do with you and your problems and how you can solve your problems? Well, I want you to think about these two organizations that I've just described. Okay, so you've got this one organization that has a common clarity of purpose, values, and vision, and the other one which doesn't. So the one that has that, they have coherence, harmony. So there's health. And when you are experiencing solutions to your problems, let's put it that way, doesn't that describe you, right? Isn't that your inner experience? Hopefully you can see that that's true. Now, let's take the other organization that lacks that, right? So it's incoherent, chaotic, diseased. There's a lot of conflict that's unresolvable, argumentativeness. So what would be, doesn't that describe your experience when you're experiencing a problem? So you just think about the problems that you have, all of the problems that you have. Isn't it true that all of those problems have in common that that's what your inner experience is? Your inner experience is that there's all of those qualities that are expressed when there's a lack of coherence, when there's a lack of inner clarity of purpose, values, and vision. The result of that is that state which you describe as a problem. Hopefully you can see the truth of that. Another way of putting this is, and put it rather bluntly, but think about what is the common thread among all of your problems? Because normally we focus on the problems, we think about all of the external stuff. Oh, well, it's these conditions, it's the environment, it's the economy, it's so and so who's doing these things to me. It's because I was born into this family, I didn't get a lucky break. All of these problems. It's all external stuff. But when we are ready to be honest, we can take a look and we can see that the common thread among all of the problems is me. I'm the only thing here that's in common. My tendency is to look out there and blame all the various conditions and circumstances and people, but they're actually have nothing to do with it at all. What's in common is me, and most specifically, it's this state, right? That state is the actual problem. The problem is the state. It's not the outer conditions. We think it's the outer conditions. It's nothing whatsoever to do with the outer conditions. And at first that seems very difficult to believe. I understand that. But if you look sincerely in your life, you will see that it is true. You'll see that there's actually, the more that you have pointed the finger out there and blamed the circumstances and conditions and all the external things, the more disempowered you've been, because you've been distancing yourself from the actual problem. You've been living in ignorance of the nature of the actual problem. So of course you can't solve the problem when you have ignorance of the actual nature of the problem. If you think the problem is out there, if you think the problem is any of those things out there, if you think the problem is all those things, all the things that you think you variously blamed it on, right? It was this, it was these people, it was these conditions, it was that job, it was the economy, it was because of all the things that you thought it was. When you think it's those things, and by the way, this includes even the, and gets a bit tricky, but there are definitely things that can be outer circumstances and conditions that can be either aligned with the solution or with the problem. So of course it may be the case that that when you are manifesting health, that you may eat in a particular way. I'm not going to deny that. That's certainly a possibility. It's not a rule, but it's certainly a possibility. But the mistake that we make is we say, the way that I'm eating is the cause of my health or lack of health. And that's incorrect. Because if that was true, then that would actually be the solution for people. But actually, it's not the solution. If you look and see the truth of that, it can be quite shocking. The way that people eat in the short term can seem to produce changes for better or for worse, but it does not lead to a lasting change. If you look in your own life, you'll see the truth of that. It's somewhat shocking, but it's true. So it's not any of those outer things. The outer things are a reflection of the inner. The outer is a reflection of the inner. It's really, really important to understand. So as long as we're looking at the outer and we're trying to fix that in order to fix our problems because we think that is the problem, we cannot succeed. It's like looking in a mirror and you're trying to dress up the mirror. It's not going to work. It will never work. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how long you work at it. It doesn't matter how many experts you bring in. You'll never succeed in what you're aiming at because it's a reflection. It's not the source. It's not the truth. And so as long as our attention is out there on the effects, we can't possibly solve the problem because the problem is not out there. The problem is not at the level of the effect. The problem is always at the level of the cause, which is within. The problem is at the level of the cause, which is within. Okay, so remember I said might be shocking, difficult to believe, but I did say that the real problem is that you don't really know what the problem is, because if you did know what the problem was, then you would already be well on your way to living the solution to that problem instead of continuing to repeat the problem in ignorance. So hopefully now you can start to see the truth of that. The problem is that you have been looking somewhere else, like looking in the mirror at a reflection and trying to change that, which will never work. You have to look to the source in order to solve the problem. So remember, the claim at the beginning was how you can solve all of your problems without doing any of the things that you think you have to do to solve those problems. So all the things you think you have to do are all things that are external. All the conditions that you think you have to meet before you can solve the problem. So if so we could term the actual problem then in this way. The actual problem is self-ignorance. Can you see that's true? The problem is self-ignorance. You don't know. You can't solve what you don't know because you don't know. You're ignorant of what it is even is. And so this is a really important first step in the process, is to actually see that, tell the truth about it, because only then can you start to act intelligently, putting your attention where it needs to be. Now, the temptation to continue to put your attention on all those other things is often very strong because there's such a habit, and there's so much emotion invested in it, so much fear invested in that. Oh, I have to keep putting my attention out there because I'm convinced that the problem is out there. I believe that whatever my problem is, I have to do those external things in order to solve the problem. And it can be very difficult to fully commit and follow through to keeping your attention where it needs to be, because that habit of putting the attention out there is so strong. But you have to, just take a look and see. Just watch carefully and see the truth of this in your own life. Just see how that temptation is there to keep putting the attention out there on what you believe the problem is and what you believe the solution will be externally. And see that every time you do it, it's like, it's like there's a law there. It's like every time you touch fire, you're going to get burned. Same is happening here. Every time you do that, every time you put your attention out there trying to solve the problem externally with all the things that you think you need to do, all the conditions that need to be met first, then you continue to get the same outcome, which is another way of saying that you maintain the problem. So I've made this claim: you can solve your problems without doing any of those things. Indeed, it's important that you cease to do those things, because when you do those things, you're reinforcing the problem. You're reinforcing it because, again, the problem is self-ignorance. So every time you do those things, you're reinforcing the self-ignorance. You're making the wrong. You're affirming incorrectly that I am that over there. I am that reflection, and my okayness depends upon dressing up the reflection. It's like the story of the dog with the bone who walks over the bridge, looks down in the water and sees a dog down there with a bone and says, I should have that bone, and leaps down there to grab the bone, and in the process, of course, loses his bone. So this is the mistake that we make. We're looking at the reflection and we're thinking, I've got to do something about that. But that's you're putting your attention on the effect instead of the cause, and you can't possibly change anything if you put your attention on the effect. You have to put your attention on the cause. So hopefully this is somewhat making sense. And so then we need to get kind of connected most of the dots, right? Seeing that you can't solve the problems by doing what you've been doing, because that's reinforcing the problem, because the actual problem is self-ignorance. So that's most of it, but then there's a key part that's missing, which is maybe the elephant in the room, which is, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but the claim was, I'm going to tell you how you can solve your problem. Hitting the keyboard there, sorry. How you can solve, too excited. How you can solve the problem, right? How you can solve all your problems. So I have to make good on that promise if I'm going to honor my word. So I've defined, I like to include you in it. Well, maybe because if you're engaging sincerely, then you have also done this for yourself. So we have defined that the actual problem is self-ignorance, and that all of the habitual things that we believe that we have to do in order to solve the problem reinforce that problem, the self-ignorance, therefore can't possibly solve the problem, right? It's reinforcing the problem, can't solve the problem. So then what could the solution be? See if you can puzzle that out. If the problem is self-ignorance, what could the solution be? You've probably figured it out. I'll just reveal it to you. It's self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is the one true solution to all problems. Now, that, again, may be shocking, depending on where you're at in this whole process. Self-knowledge is the one true solution to all problems. Now, I'm not the only one to make that claim. I mean, this has been claimed by all great masters and traditions, right? I mean, this has always been said: know thyself, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Right? I mean, these are the truth being self-knowledge, is to know yourself, know who you are. This is why the great masters don't waste their time on other things. They go right to the heart of it. They say, look, yes, I understand you have all these problems. I get it. But have you noticed that those problems have not ended with all of the things that you've tried to do? And boy, haven't you tried to do a lot of things. I mean, this is just what they've pointed out, right? Not just you, but everybody. The humanity is billions strong, still trying to solve all their problems in increasingly complicated ways, and hasn't worked. It has never worked. So it's a fool's errand to believe that it will work. It's not going to work. This is why they rightly pointed out, look, I understand you've got all these problems. The person makes the journey up the mountain seeking out the master, and they finally arrive, and they say, here's all of my problems, and I'm looking to solve all of my problems. And the master says, look, I get it. You've come a long way, and it was no small task for you to get here. So you're obviously sincere and serious about this. You really want to solve your problems, and I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to give you false answers. I'm going to tell you the truth. Are you ready? And they say, yes, I'm ready. And they say, okay, here's the truth. The answer is self-knowledge. And 99% of them walk back down the mountain and they say, it was a waste of my time. Can't believe I went up there in the first place. Obviously, that person doesn't know anything. But the one person out of 100 who actually got up there which is to say, 1 in 1,000,000. Because most don't even go up the mountain, but the 1 in 1 million who goes up the mountain and has the sense and maturity to actually listen to what's being said to them, they've struck gold, and they get it, and they solve their problems. So the answer is self-knowledge. Now, what does that mean? Is a phrase or a word is helpful, right? It can point to something, but then we have to clarify, what on earth does that really mean? So self-knowledge, see if I can define this for you. Okay, it means that you have to study your actual experience. You have to be conscious, and you have to see how things are working. So there's a law. There's a law of oneness. This law of oneness has been affirmed again by all the great masters. The Father and I are one. It's just one example of how this has been affirmed. There's only one truth. There's only one reality. I've pointed this out many times one way that I describe this is so you can see that when you sleep at night and you dream, then there's a whole dream universe with all of these dream characters. When you wake up, you realize it was a dream. Now, what was the nature and substance of that dream? It was consciousness, right? It was only consciousness. It wasn't some independent thing. When you wake up, that dream universe is no longer there. It has dissolved back into its source, which is consciousness. And who is that consciousness? You are, clearly, in regard to the dream, right? That's not difficult to recognize. Well, now notice it's the same is true now of the waking state. All of this is also only consciousness. And you think, oh, I'm this one here. I'm this body. I'm this mind. I'm this personality. I'm this story. And I'm separate from all these other things. But when you take a close look, you'll see that cannot be true. It is not true. This waking state is just like a dream in regard to the fact that it is made only of consciousness. It exists in consciousness. It is only consciousness. And you are that consciousness. You are not the one that you think you are. You are not that separate one. You are not that person. So self-knowledge means that. It means recognizing that fundamental truth of oneness, recognizing that that's who you are, recognizing that truth. Okay? That's one level of it. That's one aspect of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is not limited to that. That's the beginning. That's the foundation. But very important is to recognize that's simply the truth. Now, the habit is over and over and over and over to continue to make the same mistake and say, but I'm this one here, I'm this body, I'm this mind, I'm this personality, I'm this story, I'm these problems, I'm these conditions, I'm these circumstances, I'm these thoughts, I'm these beliefs, I'm these desires, I'm all these things. And so the self-knowledge comes through self-study. You have to observe, and you have to, but having this truth pointed out to you allows you to greatly accelerate the rate of self-learning, right? So you study, but I'm pointing something out to you that allows you to study much faster. What is it I'm pointing out? Again, notice when you dream at night, that dream is in consciousness. While the dream is happening, you think, oh, I'm this dream character. All these things that are happening in the dream, they're happening to me. If somebody's chasing after you in the dream, you think they're chasing after me. If you win the lottery in the dream, you think I've won the lottery. Whatever happens in the dream, you think it's happening to you as the point of perception. Whatever that is, whether it's embodied or disembodied, there's some point of perception, a point of view, a perspective, and you mistake yourself to be that while the dream is happening. Upon waking, you realize it was a dream. Of course, I'm not that one, because that one's not can't be found anymore. That one only existed as a character in the dream. Upon waking, you realize, oh, I couldn't possibly be that one because it doesn't exist here. But then see that this same fundamental mistake is made because you immediately say, you attach to this, you say, oh, but I'm this one. Well, slow it down and look and study. Observe yourself and see that you're making the same mistake. In the waking state, you attach to this particular point of view, this particular lens, this particular perspective. And you say, I'm this one. But it's the same thing that happens in the dream. And likewise, just in parallel to the dream, this whole waking state universe is appearing in consciousness. Now, that's only difficult to accept because you're presently hypnotized. But notice that when you're dreaming, you have absolutely no problem whatsoever accepting that the waking state is a dream. You don't usually think about it. But if you were to think about it, you would realize in the dream, it's very obvious that the waking state is just another dream that exists in consciousness. How can you know that? Because it has dissolved back into consciousness. It's not presently happening in the dream, right? In the dream, the waking state is not there. So the waking state has dissolved back into consciousness exactly the same way that the dream dissolves back into consciousness. It emerges from consciousness. It exists in consciousness as consciousness. It dissolves and merges back into consciousness. It's only ever consciousness. There's never anything apart from consciousness. Who could you possibly be? Consciousness. Hope I'm not giving that one away. I mean, it's obvious, right? You have to be consciousness. You can't be anything else because everything else is coming and going, disappearing in you. You as consciousness are the only one constant. Everything else is changing. The waking state character that you presently take yourself to be is only presently appearing, but it won't in the dream state. And it's only a trick of mind that says, but it appeared previously and it will appear again. That's just a thought. You don't know that that's true. You can't possibly know that it's true because it's not true. That's just a hypnotic effect. The actual obvious truth is that there's only consciousness. So, but you have to do the self-study. You have to apply yourself and see this over and 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 over until you're absolutely thoroughly convinced of the truth of it. So that's one level of self-study. So it gives you self-knowledge because that's, again, the foundation. You have to see that that's true because everything is consciousness. There's only consciousness. I don't know if I could say that too many times because it's so important. There is nothing other than consciousness. It's not, you are not conscious. Consciousness is you, right? The big mistake is that we think, oh, I'm this one and I'm conscious. No, you are consciousness dreaming that you are this one. And you have to see that by looking over and over and over and over and over and over until, again, you become thoroughly convinced because you just see there's no alternative. It's the only possibility. This is the only possibility. There's only consciousness. Everything else is transient. Only consciousness remains. Only consciousness is the one truth, which again is why all the great masters of all the traditions have affirmed this as the fundamental reality, that there is only one. So that's the foundation, but that's not the only thing that you have to study because there's also the dream. You have to have mastery within the dream. Why? Because the dream continues to happen and the tendency is to be hypnotized by it. So I've told this story many times. I'll probably tell it many more times about Narada and Krishna. Narada and Krishna are walking together, Krishna being the supreme being. And Narada says, hey, Krishna, I want to know about your power of Maya. The power of Maya being that hypnotic power to cause us to mistake ourselves. And Krishna says, oh, I don't think you really want to know about that. Come on now. And Narada says, no, I really want to know. And Krishna says, okay, fine. But I'm thirsty. So before I begin, go up ahead to the next village and fetch me some water. I'll be waiting here for you. So Narada goes up to the next village, goes to the well. At the well, he meets a young woman, falls in love. They get married. He totally forgets about Krishna. He has children, grandchildren, ages, and one day, as an old man, this flood comes through and wipes out the village, washes everybody away. They're all gone, and he's the only one that remains. And he's wandering around, lost, crying, grieving. And then he bumps into Krishna, and Krishna says, "Hey, what took you so long?" So this is the thing: is that the dream, which is this power of Maya, it has that power. Narada is Narada is a very powerful being. I want to be clear about that. Narada is very, very powerful, very intelligent, very aware being. He has great self-knowledge. So he's a sage. He's not just a common person. Narada can be lost in the power of Maya. Do you think that you could? You can answer yes. Well, so what does this mean? It means, yes, we have to have that self-study that gives us that direct knowledge that I am that one consciousness, which is all. We have to have that knowledge. Narada has that knowledge. I'm sure he's sat in meditation for thousands of years. He knows, he's got the direct experience. But he also, in order to be fully realized, 100%, he also has to have the self-knowledge, which includes the power of Maya, which is why he asks Krishna. He's realizing, I feel a sense of lack. I feel like something is missing. I have some essential self-knowledge, but there's something that I don't know. And he says, I know what I don't know. I don't know about Maya. Krishna, tell me about Maya. I need to know about Maya, because only that will make me complete. I have to have that complete self-mastery, complete self-knowledge. It's not just enough that I can sit in meditation for 1,000 years and blast off into samadhi where I'm, in unity consciousness. That's fantastic, very important. But if I can be fooled by walking to the next village, then clearly I'm lacking some self-knowledge. So I need to have that self-knowledge. So we also have to study this aspect of ourselves, because remember, it's all consciousness, it's all one. So the dream is not something, the dream or the waking state, I'm using those terms interchangeably, that is not false in the sense that it doesn't exist. It does exist. It's an aspect of ourselves, like a coin has two sides. It's one coin, but it has two sides. You can't separate the two sides. You can't ever get rid of one of the sides. So you can't get rid of the dream. You can't get rid of Maya. Maya is a fundamental quality of you as consciousness. It exists. It's part of you. You will never rid yourself of it. To try and rid yourself of it is to live in ignorance. And remember, self-ignorance is the problem. So there's no way that will ever be the solution. It will only reinforce the problem. So what is the answer? The answer is self-knowledge. So you have to study yourself in your completeness so that you can know everything there is to know. That gives you the real solution. So what does that mean? Because I've suggested that the self-study of yourself as consciousness involves, you could apply yourself to this in many ways, but one way that I've suggested to you is to see that this waking state is a dream, that it all exists in consciousness, that you mistake yourself to be something, an aspect of it, a character, a perspective, something limited within it, something separate within it. But if you study over and over and over and over and over every moment as much as possible, you'll see this is all consciousness. It's all consciousness. There's only one thing happening. All of this is consciousness, just as a dream. The entire universe is consciousness. I am consciousness. I am not the one that I mistake myself to be. I am not a person who is conscious. I am consciousness dreaming that I'm a person. So you just keep seeing that, looking, seeing, looking, seeing. Then this other aspect is to learn about this power of Maya. So you, on the one hand, the self-study is to recognize that you are consciousness, which is independent of Maya in a sense, right? I mean, not truly independent, but independent in the sense of like it's one side. So you have to be able to clearly recognize that. But that's only one side. You also have to have total knowledge of the other side, which is the side of Maya. So you have to understand, how does this work? It's not just enough to know that it's a dream. You actually have to know how the dream works. And maybe at first that seems overwhelming or something because you don't even know where to begin. But there's some basic laws, natural laws, and this is good news. So you can learn about yourself by and your power of Maya by understanding these natural laws. So these natural laws, it's like, we know about many of the natural laws in from physical sciences, right? So we know about the power of force of gravitation. So these are natural laws; they exist in nature. It's how nature is structured. It's how Maya works. So we want to and need to understand these natural laws, and there are some very fundamental, important natural laws, and I've talked about some of them before, so these won't be totally new to most of you. But these are, for example, the law of attention, which states that you have two fundamental powers as consciousness: intention and attention, and your attention determines your experience. So the dream is constructed by attention. Where you put your attention, that is what the dream consists of. So as consciousness, you are unbounded, infinite, pure potential. So nothing differentiated, nothing actualized at all. There's nothing there, no thing as pure consciousness, no thing. But you are absolute pure potential for everything. So nothing actualized, but everything in potential. But the nature of attention is that it can only go to one thing. And so where you put your attention, that is what you experience as the totality. So it's just a law. You can test it out. Just see that that's true. Just notice that you are always using this power of attention, and whatever you put your attention on, that's what you experience as real. Now, this is so fundamental that many people will dismiss it and overlook it and say, what use is that? That's obvious. That's stupid. Well, only to their own, that will only hurt them to do so, because if you live in ignorance of the law, then it's still operating, but you just suffer the consequences of that ignorance. Because remember, the problem is self-ignorance. The solution is self-knowledge. So you want to understand your own power of Maya and how it's structured. And it's structured by these natural laws. So you want to understand them. You want to study them. So you study these laws, and one of them, which I'm just giving you one example presently, it's a very powerful one that will help you tremendously, is just to see that I have this power of attention. Where I put my attention, that is what I experience as real. And again, it's always operating, even if you're living in ignorance of it. But when you live in ignorance of it, then you are suffering the consequence, which is problems. When you understand how profoundly powerful this is, then you can begin to work with it intelligently, which allows you to gain self-mastery so that you no longer have to suffer the problems, because you start to understand how you can work with it. Now, most people, they feel that they're a victim of their attention. Most people live in ignorance of this power entirely, but when they become aware that they have the power, that the power exists, then initially they'll often feel that they're a victim of it, because they'll feel powerless to be able to direct their attention. Try and sit quietly and keep your attention on a point for 5 minutes, and you will be perhaps surprised, perhaps not surprised, to find out that you can't do it even for a few seconds at a time. Your attention's wandering all over the place because every little thing, every little impulse that pops up, your attention goes to that. So this is only because it's a habit. It's a habit of allowing the attention to wander and not utilizing this power consciously. But just because that's the case presently does not mean that it always must be that way. You can reclaim your volitional control over your attention. It is definitely something that you can do. It's trainable. People have been training it for a very long time. This is one of the things that meditation offers. It's why meditation is so highly valued, because it exercises your volitional control over this fundamental power that aligns you with natural law so that you live in calm command of your life instead of as an ignorant victim. So that you can solve all of your problems, because when you understand and reclaim your power to direct your attention at will, then you have the ability to consciously control your dream. Think about that. I mean, it might, again, it's easy, somewhat easy, unfortunately too easy to dismiss how profoundly powerful this is, but it is so powerful that when you have the ability, when you regain your ability to direct your attention at will, you then have the ability to dream consciously, which means you cease to be a victim, because you actually start, again, it has to do with self-knowledge. When you know about your powers, when you know about this natural law and you know that you have the ability to exercise that power volitionally, then you no longer suffer from ignorance, imagining that you're being victimized by anything, because you see very clearly that there's only one thing happening here. It's consciousness, and this is consciousness dreaming. I am that, and I have this fundamental power of attention, which I have the ability to direct. Wherever I put my attention, that's what I experience as real. So if I'm not liking my experience, guess what? I can change it by changing where I'm putting my attention. Now, at first, you don't seem to be able to do that very successfully. I understand. But again, with practice, it is absolutely possible. So many people have verified this for themselves, and you too can do so. In order to do that, you simply have to apply yourself consistently to self-study. So again, what is the self-study? Twofold. One, you have to recognize as often as possible that there's only one reality, and that reality is consciousness, and you are that. What you habitually mistake yourself for is an object in consciousness. It is it is something that is attention is being placed on. It's an individuated expression. It's a character. It's a body. It's a personality. It's a story. It's a collection of ideas. It's a narrative. So you just study that over and over and over and see. You can just ask yourself, how do I know I'm not dreaming right now? You know, this is one. It's like a technique that people use to develop the skill of lucid dreaming. Is they form the habit of asking themselves, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? So they use that that new habit. They establish that new habit of questioning whether they're dreaming, and that transfers because they're not the character, they're their consciousness. So that habit becomes established, and then when they're dreaming, they also ask themselves, am I dreaming? And they'll realize, oh, I am dreaming. Well, that's fantastic, but this can easily be extended. You do the same thing now and you say, am I dreaming? And rather than just saying, oh, I'm not dreaming, this is the waking state, you say, well, maybe this is a dream. It may be the waking state. It's a waking state dream, but it nonetheless is a dream. And see that that's true. You just keep looking and seeing. How do I know it's not a dream? Apart from the fact that there's a certain the waking state has more of a sense of substance to it because there are certain elemental qualities which are enhanced or enlivened in the waking state. I'm not denying that. There are differences in degree between waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, but the essence is the same. They are all composed of elements, which is to say senses and thought, and that they're nothing other than that. That's all that it is. So you just look and see over and over, ask yourself, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? And just tell the truth about it. I am dreaming. That's what this is. This is all happening in consciousness. So that's the first step. The second step is to then exercise your power of exercise your powers of working in alignment with natural law within the states of consciousness, within waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Deep sleep is maybe more challenging in certain respects, but forget about that for now. Certainly in the waking state, you can do this. In the waking state, you can start to form the habit, develop the habit of noticing that you have this, that there's a natural law of attention, which states that wherever your attention goes, that's what you experience as real. That's the entirety of your experience is composed of whatever your attention is on. And you have the ability to direct your attention. So you start to exercise that. And again, at first you're weak. Think about if you're not in the habit, you don't lift weights, and you go and try and lift 1,000 pounds doing any kind of movement, you're not going to be able to do it because you're weak. Does that mean that you cannot do it? No, of course it doesn't mean you cannot do it. It just means you presently are not, you haven't developed that skill, but you can with practice. So in the same way, you have atrophied in your volitional control over your attention, and so you're very weak at it. So am I. I'm maybe less weak than you, but relatively compared to Jesus or some great master. Okay, very weak, but I can tell you for sure because I've experienced it. I've developed and cultivated that skill, and have seen the consequences of that, which are only beneficial. So it encourages me to continue to do more of it because it just continues to get better. So you develop that skill by just noticing that you can direct your attention. And at first you can't do it very well at all. But the same as if you want to lift weights, if you're discouraged because you can't lift 1,000 pounds and you just give up, then you'll never get better. But if you say, okay, I can't lift 1,000 pounds, but could I lift 5? And you practice, you will get better. And if you can't lift 5, you say, well, could I lift 2? Can't lift 2, you say, could I lift 1? You do something. And you do it over and over and over, not mindlessly, very, very important, not mindlessly, with great mindfulness, with great awareness, so that you learn about yourself. Very important. Learn about where do you fail? Why do you fail? Just pay attention. So you notice your attention is going to something, right? Your attention is always going to something. It's never not going to something. I guess arguably when you're in deep samadhis, then it's not going to something. It's going to nothing. But apart from that, it's always going to something. So you just notice you have that power. The power is operating. It's functioning. Now, notice you can direct it. You have the ability to direct it. Think about something consciously. Anything. Think about a purple zebra. Just think about a purple zebra and notice that you have the ability to do that. You can direct your attention to the thought about a purple zebra. That is a possibility. You have the ability to do that. How long can you keep it on the purple zebra? Not for very long. How clearly can you keep it on the purple zebra? Oh, probably not very well at all, right? So it's a matter of developing the skill by doing it, exercising it. So maybe you know probably best to practice putting your attention on something that you want. Purple zebra maybe is interesting, maybe not interesting, depending on how you view it, but probably not what you want. So it might not be bad to practice putting your attention on a purple zebra, you could practice visualizing a purple zebra, see how long you can keep your attention on a purple zebra, see how clearly you can see the purple zebra. Can you hear the purple zebra, smell the purple zebra, right? You could do that as an exercise, but probably more productive, more helpful, give you better results more quickly if you focus your attention on what you want. We're at time, so I'm not going to go into great detail on it today, although I've gone into it in detail previously. But I'll just briefly mention that, of course, when you're wanting to put your attention on what you do want, then you can't help at first but actually putting your attention on what you don't want. So there's a great difficulty there. So in that sense, there is some value in choosing something neutral, because you'll be less likely to have your attention redirected to what you don't want. But again, probably more valuable in the long term to practice putting your attention on what you do want. So you just pay attention, though. You put your attention on what you want. So whatever that is, let's say you're struggling with a problem of something to do with health. So what you want is, we could just say broadly, you want health. So you just put your attention on health. Now, as I've said, at first, you have a couple of problems. One, you can't keep your attention on that at all for very long. The second thing is, when you think about health, immediately your attention goes to what you don't want, because you don't know about health. If you knew about health, you would already be experiencing that, because you would clearly put your attention on that. But it's not clearly defined for you. You don't know all the details about it. You don't know what that experience is fully. So you can't put your attention on it. Not only do you struggle to consciously put your attention on anything for very long, but in particular, you can't put your attention on this thing that you want because you don't know what it is. So instead, what happens is your attention goes to its opposite, which is what you don't want, because you're very practiced at that. So that's okay, as long as you're aware. You just keep paying attention and notice what's happening. The more you notice, the more you have the ability, because you're gaining self-knowledge. Remember, that's the key. It's not about, if it could be delivered in a book or a video or a lecture or something, then, holy cow, somebody would have done it. I mean, and in a sense, it has been done. But the problem is that it can't really be delivered that way, because it has to be directly known and experienced, which means that all of the knowledge and information can be presented and pointed to, but you have to apply it in order for it to be real for you. So you have to actually look and see, okay, I put my attention on health as the example here, right? And then you just realize, well, my attention just went to something else. Great. Be happy about that. Great success. Why? Because you noticed it. Because remember, the key here is self-knowledge. It's not about getting the right answer. It's about having the self-knowledge, about knowing how you get to the right answer. So you're just to pay attention. It's self-study. So you put your attention on what you want, and then you just notice, oh, wow, look, attention went to something else. Then you start to notice more with greater subtlety. How did it go to something else? By what mechanism? How was I lured away from what I want? Why was I tempted? Why was that attractive to me? Right? You have to start to pay attention. You see directly. You just start to notice directly. And these answers are directly experienced. They're not something that you can, again, it's not like book knowledge that you've read it and you say, oh, that's the right answer. That might be helpful as a pointer, but you have to actually experience it yourself. And the direct experience is not something that necessarily translates into words. It's known and felt and perceived as a whole. So that's what you want to be noticing. Just notice it. Don't worry about whether you can describe it at first. Just notice, just pay attention. Be very happy that you're able to see whatever you can see. If you see that you're failing, great. That's the success, because it means that you're seeing that you're failing. Now pay attention. How are you failing? What does it even mean to fail? How do you know that you're failing? How would you know what success was? These sound like crazy making questions, but you just patiently attend and you will see great changes will take place, because you're learning about yourself, and the solution to all the problems is self-knowledge. So this is how you get there. I can't go into any more detail or we'll be here all day. Let me just say that before I end this video, uh, uh, for those who are here live and also particularly those who are seeing this on YouTube, I've been thinking a lot about how can I, how can I best serve you? How can I help you? Because I sincerely know that it's possible for you to solve all of your problems, and I want to help you do that. And why would I want to help you do that? Well, because remember, I think I mentioned this, that there's this universal law of oneness. There's only one reality. So what goes around comes around. You know, I'm not this individual here. I am that consciousness. Whatever is of benefit to anyone anywhere is of benefit to me because I am that. So it's just like the world is the world is a happier place. I am happier. Every point of the whole is happier because every point is the whole. It's holographic. So I want you to be happier because I want to be happier. I want you to be more successful because I want to be more successful. We're not separate. So I've been thinking about what is the best way, and um, what I know is what I've already said here, is that you have to apply yourself to it. If you think, oh, somebody should just tap me on the forehead or snap their fingers or wave their magic wand and everything should be great, it doesn't actually work that way, because again, the answer is self-knowledge. How do you get the self-knowledge? Well, by studying yourself. I know this is all repetitive, but just see the truth of that. So in order to be happier, in order to solve your problems, in order to be successful, in order to be self-realized, in order to have spiritual command, spiritual knowledge, spiritual realization, all of these things are the byproduct of self-knowledge. And in order to have self-knowledge, you have to study, observe yourself. Well, how is that going to happen? Obviously, by you doing it. You have to apply yourself. And how is that going to happen other than by I'm just repeating myself, by you doing it. But how are you going to do it? And so I've been thinking about that. And what I know is that there's an ancient tradition of, I'll call it coaching. I mean, it may be called by other names in other traditions and other ways of thinking about it, but it really comes down to coaching, right? You go to somebody who has the knowledge that you want, who's put it into practice, actualized it, knows it, realizes it, and you say, I want what you have. I want you to help me to learn that and embody that and experience that for myself. That's coaching, right? And it's an ancient tradition because it works. It has a great success rate, greater than anything else. We call it mentorship, right? Coaching, mentorship, whatever you want to call it. But there's a relationship that's established where somebody who knows, lives that truth, has the direct experience of it, helps to guide somebody else to discover it for themselves. It's not just about putting it in a book or anything like that. It has to be imparted through this relationship of coaching or mentorship. And so I want to offer that to people. I want anybody who's interested in that, to be able to receive that. And so I've hatched this idea, and I'm setting it up presently. Hopefully it will be ready by the time this video is on YouTube. It's not ready presently as I'm speaking. So for those who are live, you can't find it yet, but by the time it's up on YouTube, it will be. And it's going to be at joeylott.com/intro, INTRO, where I've created a video. It's about 30 minutes long that covers 4 of these principles. I've talked about 2 of them here, but talk about these 4 of these principles, these key principles. They're not the only principles, but 4 very important principles that will help you in this process of self-study. And so that video is to provide that introduction so that you can have that foundation of that knowledge. And then I'm offering an introductory call for free to anybody who's sincere and who qualifies. There's certain qualifications, like you have to be coachable, right? You have to actually want to make the change in your life and be willing to apply yourself. But for anybody who thinks they would be a good fit and they want to have that introductory coaching call, I'm offering 1 hour with anybody who wants to do that, because I know for sure that if you go through that process, watching that video, and then there's in order to schedule the call, the session with me, you have to fill out a short questionnaire, and that questionnaire is not for my benefit, it's for your benefit. It helps you to begin to see exactly what you need to become aware of so that you can begin to apply these principles intelligently to get the results that you want in your life. So I'm absolutely confident anybody who goes through that process will begin to get the results that they want in their lives. And then during that call, I can help to just sort of hone that and give very specific, precise guidance that will help you as an individual with where you are in your path, so that you can start to get better results in your life. So that's my best. It's my best idea at the moment in order to be able to help people start to apply these things in their lives and get results. Because again, I want you to get results when we all are. Think about what that would be like, if everybody in the world was happy, healthy, fulfilled, had inner coherence, had a clarity of purpose, vision, and values. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't you want to live in that world? I mean, I would. So, and I know that I have that power. By putting my attention on that, then these ideas come, and then these possibilities emerge, and I know it's possible to create that. So that's the idea. So that will be at joeylott.com/intro, and on YouTube I'll put that link in the description for the video. For those who are live, you'll just have to remember it, but it's joeylott.com/intro. And again, it's not available as I'm speaking, but it will be hopefully later today, if I can figure everything out. I've got most of it put together, but just getting everything on the page is, hopefully I can have that done later today. So that's it for now. For those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for Q&A, and I'm going to end this recording now.